Well, hello again from the Granite State. My name is Gary, and this is the Restoring Main Street podcast. Thank you, as always, for joining me. Little time off from work, so I'm able to do a little bit more work on podcasts, and hopefully going to get a few actually recorded so that I can present these when it seems appropriate, spread them out a little bit, but give you guys a little bit more information, and hopefully bring it back to Restoring Main Street a little more often to just check on to see what I've posted, what I'm trying to share with all of you. So, topic for today. With everything that's going on, I suppose I could go off in plenty of different directions. Honestly, there's a lot of concern, like I've mentioned, with every aspect of our lives at this point. It seems like there's, excuse me, seems like there's always something tugging us in one direction or another, and you wonder how much of it is designed to distract away from the things that we should be paying attention to, and how much of it is relevant, something we should actually, take a few minutes and consider. And one of those things that that I'm just attracted to, and I think it has or going to have a potential profound effect on humanity as a whole, and therefore will affect, quote unquote, the restoring of Main Street. AI. Artificial intelligence, good or bad? Is it a great thing, or is it potential destruction of mankind as we know it? And those are some of the questions that have just naturally come to the forefront when you start talking about AI and its potential effects on us moving forward. So what I'd like to do is, just share with you a few articles, give you some information. I've got a couple of clips to share, and I'm going to try to cover this as best I can. It may be something, depending on how much I cover, and if anything potentially new breaks, that I will cover again in the future. But for now, why don't we start the program? And hello again. So like I said, AI. If you think back not that long ago, most of us were introduced with AI. You might have seen 2001: A Space Odyssey. Back then, that was a little preview of what artificial intelligence might look like or could look like. The next closest thing that I remember in the not too distant past was when IBM introduced their form of AI in Watson, and Watson, as a display of its abilities, was tasked with playing. I think it was the whoever was Grand Master as far as chess at the time, and they sat down and had at it, and I believe Watson won, if I remember correctly. I mean, not all that significant in the world of what AI's actual potential was, but it was something that kind of introduced the whole concept to the American public, probably at a little bit baser level, something everybody could relate to. Certainly coming out of IBM, people were going to pay attention. So that was part of our introduction into artificial intelligence. And for those of you that might not have a general definition, you might have an idea of what you think AI is and what artificial intelligence is supposed to be. If you go to Merriam-Webster's, see if I can find this in my list of links that I have here. Yes. So let me share this particular screen with you. All right, so Merriam-Webster, if you look up artificial intelligence, their definition is a branch of computer science dealing with the simulation of intelligent behavior in computers, the compatibility of a machine to imitate intelligent human behaviors. So that was Merriam-Webster's definition of AI. It just gives you kind of like I said, a general understanding of what we consider or how we talk or discuss AI. But what are some of its general potentials? Their potentials are great. One of the other aspects of AI is what it can develop into or how advanced it could potentially be. So those are all things that all of us should take a look at as well. This next post is just a definition of a couple different forms of AI, and this comes from IBM as well, and I'll share this with you. As always, I will share all the links in the description of this podcast so that you can go and read this material on your own. But if you go to this particular article by IBM, and it's talking about types of artificial intelligence, and it goes into what they describe as weak AI versus strong AI. And weak AI, as they call it, also called narrow AI or artificial narrow intelligence, is AI trained to focus on performing specific tasks, like we just talked about with Watson. And so they describe this as a form of weak AI, and they give a couple examples here in this top part of this quick little paragraph, and it talks about just Apple's Siri, Amazon's Alexa. It mentions its own Watson. If you have a fairly new cell phone, a lot of the new cell phones have forms of AI in them. I know Apple's Apple 13, the new iPhone 13, has a form of AI in it, and Samsung, I believe, does as well. So that is just some of the, like I said, general forms of AI that you come in contact with every day. Let me just shift back to this article really quick. So when it talks about strong AI is made up of artificial general intelligence. And then, of course, there's the other form, which is, a tick above that, which is artificial super intelligence, or ASI. Artificial general intelligence, AGI, or general AI, is a theoretical form of AI where a machine would have an intelligence equivalent to humans. It would have a self-aware consciousness that has the ability to solve problems, learn, and plan for the future. Okay, that sounds like it could be, beneficial, but then you get into the super intelligence, or ASI. It would surpass intelligence in the ability of the human brain. While strong AI is still entirely theoretical, with no practical example in use today, that doesn't mean AI researchers aren't also exploring its development. And it gives the same reference that I did at the bottom of this paragraph, just talking about, to give you kind of a general idea of the character of Hal in 2001, A Space Odyssey. So that just gives you, like I said, I just want to give you kind of a general description of what we're talking about when you're talking about AI and how it could potentially, affect us in the future. So, why would I go ahead and bring these things up? Well, it starts to involve itself, like I said, in our lives pretty heavily. Then you start to beg the question, how far do we take this? What are the safeguards and parameters that should be put in place in order to make sure that somehow this meddling with creating and artificial intelligence doesn't become a huge problem for all of us. When you're talking about ASI, super artificial intelligence, and it could basically surpass the human mind as far as speed of function and number of functions it could do at the same time. You're talking about a massive leap forward as far as split-second decision-making and analyzing of any potential problems or questions that there are out there that humanity might pose to it. But at what point does all of that get just a little bit scary? If we're talking about the consciousness or potentially gaining consciousness as an artificial intelligence, when does that start to look at its creator potentially as being something inferior? Understanding that it itself, like I said, gaining consciousness, could function and go through complex problems at the snap of a finger, compared to human intelligence that it would be and will be much, much slower. At what point does AI present, a super intelligence present a potential problem? Especially if it's somehow linked to the internet and has accessed or the ability to escape a contained environment. So these are all, very important questions, things that we should talk about, think about, and, if we're going to continue to develop something of this nature, we need to put safeguards in place. And based on what you see around you that's happening now, all the involvement of companies, and they're basically ignoring the concerns of the general populace about anything we could discuss at this point. How much confidence do you have that those that are developing and working with AI are going to be conscientious citizens and managers of that intelligence and that ability? And all of that comes to a head, or as far as that goes, raises that question to another level. When I saw an article this past week, and I'll share this one with you as well. Let me bring this up, and I'll try and read different excerpts from this. This is an article in Google, or about Google, from the Federalist Papers. It was published back on June 13th of this year by Jack Davis through the Western Journal. And you can see the headline. Google engineers claim company's AI has achieved sentience. Company is glossing over the truth. That might be an issue. What do you think? So I'll read you, like I said, different spots of this particular article, and trying to hop around to what I think is relevant to share with you. But like I said, this is the beginning for most of us, of where the concern would be if you talk about AI. So a Google engineer who says the company's artificial intelligence experiment has crossed the line says he has been put on administrative leave for speaking out. Engineer Blake Lemoine initially engaged with Lambda, that's Google's language model for dialogue applications, to learn if it used hate speech or discriminatory language. What he found, he said, was that the computer program had actually attained sentience, meaning self-awareness, to the point where it has actual feelings and emotions like humans, rather than rather than simply the ability to perform functions based on principles in its programming, or programmed with. Fumbling over my words again. I apologize for that. So that's kind of concerning that IBM's Google's first response to that is a particular gentleman that's waving a flag and saying, hey, maybe we should be careful with this. Maybe people need to be notified. We need to, keep this under wraps to a certain degree. And in answer to that, the first thing Google does is put this particular individual on administrative leave. So and they claim it's due to the proprietary nature of what it is that's being discussed. Maybe. Or are they concerned that somehow the government or somebody might step in and try to, slow them a bit as far as their advancement of this particular technology? Excuse me again. So let me slide back to this article again. And read down here just a little bit further. So this discovery by Dr. Lemoine, or Engineer Lemoine, excuse me, that alarmed to the point where he alerted, Google's vice president and its head of responsible innovation. And this is reported according to the Washington Post. And when he did not think his claims were taken seriously, this is Lemoine again, he engaged with the Post about this, and this was called an aggressive move on his part. And he also included inviting a lawyer to represent Lambda, that's the artificial intelligence with Google, along with getting in touch with representatives of the House Judiciary Committee about claims where Google's unethical activities. So this particular gentleman, like I said, is raising a flag, and Google is definitely pushing back. Like I said, right here it says they put him on administrative leave, violating their confidentiality, which I can understand to a certain degree. You don't want to let your competitors know how far you've advanced with any particular piece of technology, especially when it's probably that important to you. Here's another quote. I think this technology is going to be amazing. I think it's going to be to benefit everyone. But maybe other people disagree, and maybe us at Google shouldn't be the ones making all the choices, Lemoine, who's 41, told the Post. So he's being very reasonable about all of this, I think, in his sharing of his concerns. And what bothers me as just an outsider reading this, shouldn't that be something we seriously consider? Like I said, you're talking about the ability of supercomputing. You're talking about an artificial intelligence being able to think and act for itself. And if you don't have a way to have that contained, it is beyond conceivable. If it is attached or finds a way to escape a confined environment and get to the internet and have access to computers and potentially anything and everything. If you're talking about a super intelligence, it could certainly hack its way through just about anything, and it goes in line with all the movies that you have seen over the years about the potential drawbacks with a super intelligence. And I guess what my concern is, or the reason for bringing it up, you probably ask yourself, well, what effect does it have on me, or could it have on me? Well, just what I've proposed to this point makes it something worth talking about or considering. And that's all I wanted basically to share in that particular part of it. I've got a couple of other pieces that I want to share with you. But I'll move on to those things. We'll get to those things in just a second, if you'll allow me to just take a quick break. Well, thank you for giving me a moment to run my commercial for my book, The North Country Chronicles. If you would consider supporting me in that way, going to either Barnes & Noble or Amazon and purchasing a copy of The North Country Chronicles, I would appreciate that greatly, obviously. But if you enjoyed the program, I'd love to see some support in that respect. And you get the chance to read some good poetry, in my opinion, covering a bunch of different subjects. So if you'd consider that, I'd appreciate it greatly. So in moving on the topic of AI, what else, or where does some of the concerns lie, or what direction is all of this heading? Well, if you talk about the potential for all of this and an interface, when you're talking about humans, an interface between AI and connecting you to the internet, because one of the major concerns when you talk about supercomputing and the ability, like I said, for AI to think thousands of times faster than the average human, at what point or how do we end up keeping up with something like that? That's an interesting question. Well, one of the individuals that is considering that or has an opinion on that and working on developing a way to link us as humans to a computer with many different applications, both health and a way for your mind to be able to try and keep up with what a super AI would be able to perform. One of those people is Elon Musk. And you may or may not have heard of Neuralink, but it's something that you should probably check out. Again, I will give you all the links. This is what I'm just going to play just a portion of a small clip of a rollout that a presentation that Elon Musk did back in 2020 discussing Neuralink and its advancements to that particular point and what its intentions are. And I've got a couple of clips to play. This one is because the actual rollout, the conference that CNET covered was over an hour, and all I want to do right here is just play you just a little clip just to give you an idea of what it is we're talking about, or what Elon Musk's plans or intentions are for Neuralink.
So I want to emphasize the purpose of Neuralink. Like, what's our goal? Our goal is to solve important spine and brain problems with a seamlessly implanted device. So you want to have a device that you can basically put in your head and feel and look totally normal, but it solves some important problem in your brain or spine. So going into the Neuralink architecture, what we've done over the past year is dramatically simplify the device. So we about a year ago, we had a device which had multiple parts, including a piece that it had to sort of sit behind your ear, and it was complex, and you wouldn't still look totally normal. You'd have a thing behind your ear. So we've simplified this to simply something that is about the size of a large coin, and it goes in your skull, replaces a piece of skull, and the wires then connect within a few centimeters or about an inch away from the device. And this is sort of what it looks like. So, yeah. This is our little device. It does, that thing at the bottom is just to hold the threads in place, because they're just like little fine wires. I mean, frankly, to sort of simplify this, what we're, I mean, it's more complicated than this, but in a lot of ways, it's kind of like a Fitbit in your skull with tiny wires. Our current prototype, version 0.9, has about 1,000 channels. So that's about 100 times better than the next best consumer device that's available. And it's a 23 millimeters by 8 millimeters. It actually fits quite nicely in your skull, because your skull is about 10 millimeters thick. So it fits, it goes flush with your skull, it's invisible, and all you can see afterwards is this tiny scar. And if it's under your hair, you can't see it at all. In fact, I could have a Neuralink right now, and you wouldn't know. Anyway, so it's also inductive.
So that gives you a little idea of what Elon Musk is his intentions are with Neuralink. I want to play another clip actually for you, just a quick portion of this to maybe give a little bit more insight in a little less formal presentation. And this was during a session with Joe Rogan on the Joe Rogan Experience. Elon Musk was there, and he was basically talking about Neuralink.
Through this 1-inch diameter device, electrodes be inserted, and they will find their way
Like tiny wires, basically.
Tiny wires.
Tiny wires.
And they'll find their way to specific areas of the brain to stimulate?
No, you literally put them where they're supposed to go.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you insert
How long will these wires be?
I mean, they usually go in, like, depending on where it is, like 2 or 3 millimeters.
So they just find the spots.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then then you put the device in, and that gets that replaces the little piece of skull that was taken out, and then you stitch up the hole, and you just have a little scar, and that's it.
Will this be replaceable or reversible?
Yes.
Like if someone can't take it anymore?
Yeah,
I'm too smart. I can't take it.
Yeah, you can totally take it out.
And what is the, besides restoring limb function and eyesight and hearing, which are all amazing, is there any cognitive benefits that you anticipate from something like this?
Yeah, I mean, you could for sure. I mean, basically, it's a generalized sort of thing for fixing any kind of brain injury in principle, like if you've got like severe epilepsy or something like that, it could just sort of stop the epilepsy from occurring. Like it could detect it in real time and then fire a counter pulse and stop the epilepsy. I mean, there's a whole range of brain injuries. Like somebody gets a stroke, they could lose the ability to speak. That could also be fixed. So if you've got like stroke damage, or if you lose, say, muscle control over part of your face or something like that, I think. And then when you get old, you tend to, if you get like, Alzheimer's or something like that, then you lose memory, and this could help you with, restoring your memory, that kind of thing.
Restoring memory, and what is happening that's allowing it to do that? Like the wires, these small wires, are stimulating these areas of the brain, and then is it that the areas of the brain are they're losing some sort of electrical force? Like what is happening?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like think of it as like a bunch of circuits, and there's some like circuits that are broken, and we can like fix those circuits. It's a substitute for those circuits.
And so a specific frequency will go through this?
Yeah, just
specific in that is the process figuring out how much or how little has to be, how much these areas of the brain have to be juiced up?
So there you have it, just straight from Elon Musk, just to give you a little idea of what it is that he has plans or the intentions of Neuralink is. But like you said also, I mean, this would give you a basic connection potentially with Bluetooth. That was mentioned earlier in the clip, and you didn't see it there, but it talks about, having obviously a Bluetooth link. So you could be basically linked to the internet. No longer is, it's no longer is it just you sitting down in front of a PC or using your phone, now you have a, potential direct link to the internet, to information, to intelligence. And like I said, a lot of what he's talking about are the plans for Neuralink. Not quite sure. I'd have to do a little bit more digging, and I apologize, I didn't do that today, but I'll do some of that as far as how far they are advanced with Neuralink to this point. But those are the intentions, those are the plans, though that is what Elon Musk is doing with artificial intelligence and working with Neuralink. The other thing, that first clip that I didn't get a chance to explain a little bit, and I should have taken a moment, I'll do that now. The machine that he was standing next to was not the Neuralink, but because of the fibers and the delicacy of what needs to be performed when you're talking about implanting this device, and the size of the fibers and where they need to go, what Elon Musk's company is also developing is a robot that would actually perform this surgery. Like I said, because of the delicacy and what it is that it's trying to do, their intention is to have a form of robotics perform this surgery from beginning to end completely. So again, there's another form of AI and superintelligence going on there, no human hands involved. So at some point, I guess, where my concern comes from is just, when do we start asking some very important questions? You think about human intelligence and our ability to make our own decisions and introducing something artificial into that as being part of your body and as opposed to being something separate. That to me, like I said, begs a lot of ethical questions. How do we govern those things? What direction are we going to go in? Parameters need to be set. And some very serious conversations need to be had when any of this is being implemented, whether it be talking about Neuralink, whether you talk about AI in general, and its involvement in our lives and where everything is going. And, one of the other more immediate concerns within the next 10 years is something else that I, wanted to share with you. And these links I will post for you so you can go check them out yourself. I don't want to make this podcast too overly lengthy, so but the other effect of AI and robotics that is more immediate for all of us is the potential job loss in the next 10 years or less. There have been articles that are suggesting that this window might have got pushed up just a bit. But they've been talking about for a while, when you talk about technology in this, that by 2030, that 1/3, at least 30% of the jobs that are now performed by human beings in the workforce could potentially be replaced by robotics and AI. And like I said, I have 2 or 3 articles that I'm going to share with you. I'm not going to pull them up, but rather just give you the general idea, and I'll give you the links so that you can check on this yourself. But I have an article from LinkedIn that talks about what's potentially going to happen, how soon any of this is going to take place. And like I said, I found this when I did just a quick Google search as far as the predictions for AI tech, when it will potentially replace jobs, and a large portion of jobs in our economy. And when you're talking about 1/3, and like I said, I have articles from LinkedIn, I have articles from Business Insider, and an article from CNBC that I will, like I said, put it down in the description so you can check some of these things out. But when you're talking about 1/3 of jobs going away, you're talking about displacing a lot of human beings. And at what point, what do you do then? You know, what do those individuals? How do you find work if technology is getting that far in advance? Where does that leave a portion of society? And that's where you hear the talk about, BUI, basic universal income. That's how they justify their discussions of that, being that certain sectors of the populace are not going to be able to keep up, are not going to choose to keep up. And at that point, how do they deal with that? How do they find meaning in their lives? How do they go on existing? What do they do? The good portion of the youth in our society is, I'm sure, on top of this, or enough of them are on top of this, and considering what all of that means down the road. But those of us that are a little bit older, what does that mean for our livelihood in the workforce? So, to me, like I said, all of these things are gravely important, as far as finding our meaning in life, being able to support ourselves, to, like I said, just function normally. So, like I said, I share all of this with you, and like I said, you can take a look at the articles for yourself, like I said before, but all of this presents some real issues, some real questions. And I know, like I stated at the beginning of this podcast, there's a lot of things that are affecting our lives right now. And all I want to do, this is not an effort to scare anyone. Honestly, this is just an effort to create a dialogue, give you something to look at, maybe do a little probing and reading on your own, and just start to understand that you're going to see things move in the technology field in leaps and bounds over the next few years. And my serious question is, how is that going to affect you? If you're a small business owner, with what's going on with artificial intelligence and the move to robotics, and like I said, 1/3 of the workforce not having the same function, the same meaning in life that they had before, being replaced and now sitting on the sidelines. That creates a serious psychological and societal issue that we really should talk about. And again, like I said, setting parameters in place that are safeguards against the potential of the serious effects to the negative that all of this could potentially mean. So that's all I wanted to do, is create awareness, give you some material to look at and read. And like I said, just coming from my perspective, when I anything that disrupts the natural order of things as far as humans go. Technology is great, obviously. It's given us, like I said, a lot of ease of life, and I believe, when AI is thoroughly, implemented, that you're going to see medical issues and problems that the human mind has been discussing, doing research, exploring for years, that there's a potential for those things to be solved in almost nanoseconds when you're talking about, like I said, the ability of tens of thousands of pieces of information and being able to think on its own, solving those problems. You're going to see great advancements. And like I said, the only concern that goes with that is the potential bad side effects. You know, what happens when, just like the Frankenstein monster, you know, the monster itself, you know, turns on its creator and potentially all of us, you know, society. So it's just a question I wanted to raise, just something I wanted you to think about. And like I said, this isn't based on, I'm not trying to scare anyone, just trying to share some information and get you to think about it. So I hope you can appreciate where that was coming from. And hey, that's it for the time being. Let's please allow me to move on to what I normally do during my podcasts, and just call out a few people and individuals that are just very helpful to the program. My friend Gene Valley at Coffee News Rochester on Facebook. If you live in the local area, in the surrounding area, and you want to know what's going on in Rochester and the surrounding communities, chances are you will find that information on Coffee News Rochester, and I would really appreciate it if you would go check them out. Also, prayers for my friend Gene, because I understand from speaking to him that he's been still dealing with pneumonia and going back and forth with his health. So he could really use some prayers, and I would really appreciate if you would consider that if you're of the faith-based group that I'm hoping is listening out there. If you would take a few minutes, both myself and certainly Gene would appreciate that. And Gene, thank you for all that you do for this particular podcast and program. I appreciate that. Also, at the Rochester Mall, if you have not been into metalheads and you're a rock aficionado, you are missing something. Go down and visit my friends down at Metalheads at the Rochester Mall. Take a look at their line of clothing for different rock bands and all kinds of different cups, mugs, that type of thing. And like I mentioned the last time, if there's something that you're thinking of that you don't see in the store, ask the polite people behind the counter and see if perhaps they can locate whatever it is that you might be looking for. Chances are I believe that they'd be more than happy to see if they can assist you. And if you don't live in the area, if you go to metalheadsrock.com on the internet, you can look at all they have to offer there as well. Like I said, they have T-shirts also in the horror genre. So any ghoul that you can think of, chances are they may have a way for you to purchase and show your enthusiasm in that particular genre as well. So please check out my friends at metalheadsrock.com. And it's a beautiful day. I'm recording this on Wednesday. I have some time off, so that's why I was able to get in another recording here. And I'm hoping to maybe bang out a couple more that I can get ahead of things here and share what I see as interesting pieces of information and concerns that I may have with all of you. And I look and pray for your support. So if you would keep in mind that you can find the Restoring Main Street podcast on YouTube. You can find us on Rumble. You can find us on Gab TV and BitChute. And for the sake of free speech and supporting those platforms, I would really appreciate if you would attempt to go to Rumble and Gab TV and BitChute as opposed to YouTube. I will continue to post there as well, but like I said, my concern is at some point I'm going to say the wrong thing, and if I link enough of those together, you won't find me on YouTube. So I would ask and pray that you would support us on some of those other platforms. If you would like, share, write a review, any of those things, whichever platform you're on, subscribe. I'm just trying to build a base of followers, obviously. And if you would share this podcast with friends, family, it just allows the outreach to grow that much more. And I would just appreciate the support in any way that it would come. So I am very grateful and thankful for you tuning in to check out my posts. And, without dragging out this too much, the other social platforms that you can find me on is I have pages for Restoring Main Street on MeWe, Gab, Getter, Instagram, Parler, and Truth Social as well. And, drawing to a close here like I do every week, what I like to leave you with is these particular words, and that's God, freedom, and family. Because if we lose the first two, if we lose God and our freedom, our families are truly doomed. So thank you once again for listening and tuning in. And until next time, God bless.